Hey, it's Joshua Vergara. What's going on, everybody? You're seeing me on the front-facing camera of the POCO X3 NFC. Now, this is a phone that is very interesting, mainly because of its very interesting price point, and because the price is so low, we're taking a look at the cameras today and seeing what they offer you for so little money. You might have been seeing a little bit of content from this phone from other YouTubers. I have had to catch up on a lot of stuff recently because, as I said before, the fires were happening here in my area, and even though it is mostly contained on my area, which means I can finally go places, the air quality is not amazing. However, it did come down just enough that I'm going to go to one of my favorite places as usual in order to get some of these photos, the LA Arboretum. Shouts out to returning channel sponsor GlassesUSA.com. You might have noticed that I've been wearing a few different pairs of glasses in recent videos, a few new pairs. And by the way, I want you to check the corner of the frame for this spot because I actually filmed some of this using the POCO X3 NFC. Now, all of the new glasses you've seen me wear recently come from the extensive catalog of over 6,000 styles in both eyeglasses and sunglasses. You can even find high-end brands like these Ray-Bans that my pops is enjoying right here. Now, my dad does not need a prescription like I do, but if he did, GlassesUSA.com would be able to make that happen even in these sunglasses. I'm even wearing a pair of prescription Ray-Bans eyeglasses, and I'm sure you've noticed that these are my go-to most of the time. But you don't have to pay premium prices for a good pair, because in-house brands like these Amelia E glasses that I got from my mom come in at an even lower price. In fact, you can get a complete pair with included basic prescription starting at $30. Now, I do have a few different pairs, and they're all high-quality frames and glass. Even my newest ones here, the Kyoto by Yoji, have this glass that are shaped like Wayfarer styles, but there's no rim. Shopping at GlassesUSA.com carries a risk-free guarantee. Shipping and returns are free, and if you're not happy with your pair, you can get a full refund within 14 days of the original delivery. And all pairs come with a 365-day product warranty. Check out GlassesUSA.com for yourself. The link is in the description. So let me know what you think about all of the quality coming from the POCO X3 NFC. The front-facing camera clips that you just saw a second ago were all done in 1080p because there's no 4K on the front. So here we are with 4K on the rear, using the wide-angle camera so I can get some of those traditional vlogging shots. That's right, we're talking about this phone right here, the POCO X3 NFC. Actually, I have the case on here. Always nice that a case comes with phones, typically from POCO's camp. But yes, we're talking about this wonderfully priced, very affordable, high-end smartphone, and I'm going to go through some of the specifications for now. That way we can get a look at what we're dealing with as far as the cameras are concerned. After all, as you can see from this video, I took this camera out for a real-world camera test, finally able to go out to the LA Arboretum and actually get some outdoor shots using this device. Let's go through some of the more general specifications real quick because there's a lot that this phone does offer. The screen is 6.67 inches, it is a full HD plus panel, but it has a 120Hz refresh rate. Obviously going to be really great for that media and gaming that you might end up watching or doing. And speaking of that gaming, this is one of the first phones to sport the Snapdragon 732G, the updated version of the G series processor that you probably have seen in other mid-range devices. And for gaming sessions, or even days like this where I share my real-world camera test and I'm using the camera a lot on this particular session, a big 5160 mAh battery is always nice to have with fast 33-watt charging. And honestly, for a phone that is less than $250 equivalent, there is a lot to love here. We have a lot of really great performing mid-range smartphones that don't break the bank, and the POCO X3 NFC might be the best option. Of course, it's not just about the specs or the high refresh rate screen, it's also about the camera experience. And while the specifications for the camera might not be extraordinary, the numbers are still very impressive. You get 4 sensors on the rear, and even though it might not be the perfect circle like we saw in the previous POCO flagship device, it still all is accommodated in a nice little camera hump. Now, we're gonna go kind of backwards on the list here because I want to save the best for last. You get a 2-megapixel macro lens, which you will see some shots from later, a 2-megapixel depth sensor, which is obviously there for more portrait shots, and then you get a 13-megapixel ultra-wide lens, which you know I'm always going to be a fan of, and it's literally what I used immediately once I reached the Arboretum for 4K video recording. But then the main sensor is a 64-megapixel sensor, which allows for not only pixel binning for your more conventional shots, but also there's the 64-megapixel mode, so you can get those high-resolution shots if you really want them. And of course, I already mentioned that the front-facing camera at 20 megapixels is capable of just 1080p recording, which is fine, I guess. It would be nice if 4K was available here, but you can't have it all. So it probably comes as no surprise to many of you that POCO knows exactly what specifications to put on even a cheaper phone like this, so that they can tout that they have multiple cameras, multiple lenses and whatnot. But what I found so interesting about the POCO during my experience with it is that, well, there are actually a lot of extra capabilities here. I mean, when you go to the camera app, you have a lot of things like AI shooting. You of course have the HDR modes that should be set to auto, but sometimes it's off, so I have to make sure it is on auto. And then when you go to the more area, you get a lot of these different modes. The first one being like a vlog mode, which I do use a couple of times in this video, and then a couple of other things like front and back, which you'll see later, where you use both the front and the rear to get some pretty interesting dual shot videos. And then you'll see down here that there's something called a clone mode, which I was very interested in. I saw a couple of other people use it, and I was happy to try it out myself. I did one clip with it, and I was so satisfied with it that I was like, you know what, that's the one I want to show later. So you've already been seeing a few examples of photos and videos from this camera, and especially with the main sensor at 64 megapixels, which is then pixel binning into 16 megapixel shots, well, the results were really good, especially in the environment that I was putting it in at the LA Arboretum. You'll see a number of zoom shots in this video, but that's because the option was there. You get the little 1x over on the side, and when you hit it, it goes 2 times. But of course, there's no real telephoto lens on this camera phone. Instead, you get a digital zoom in at 2 times on the main sensor. The ultrawide is also doing a great job, and I have to give a little bit of props to the HDR processing for ensuring that with that wide angle shot, you still get a good amount of contrast and some pretty vivid shots, especially with the sun bearing down on the camera as I was using it. But like many ultra-wide sensors, there is some softness in the edges, something that you kind of expect on the outer skirts of the frame. So if you want to ensure that your subject is in focus and highly detailed, make sure they are dead center. And a quick thought on the macro lens. I mean, obviously at 2 megapixels, it's not going to be a very highly detailed photo most of the time. It is nice that you can get kind of closer to certain subjects, but the one thing that I will mention here is that the macro lens does allow you to record video with it, so I guess if you are into that kind of stuff, well, it's available. Ultimately, though, I was having a really good time with the cameras while I was at the LA Arboretum. One thing that I noticed, especially when I was taking pictures of the plumerias, is that when I have the AI modes on, it will turn on the flower scene, which is perfectly fine. It's expected in AI shooting modes, but then it kind of gave it a little bit too much saturation, in my opinion. So there were times when I actually had to turn it off. That way I can get what is, to me, a more pleasing, more natural photo. Now, I did see a sign when I first came in, stating that the waterfall is under some sort of maintenance, which is a shame. Hopefully I'll find some other way of showing off like the slow motion modes and whatnot, but that is usually the go-to when it comes to slow motion, is like waterfalls, fountains, stuff like that. So yeah, whenever you have one of those and you see a fountain, turn on that slow motion. Oh, this is too bad. The waterfall is always a nice little area to just sit down and listen to the waves and whatnot. But yeah, it's actually like pretty much emptied out right now. Oh well, I'm sure it won't be long. Got certain modes on here, like what's called the front and back. So I guess in this case I could just show you the path I'm walking on while commenting on it. Let's just say I'm happy that there's some shade right now. Everyone say hi to the little duck friend over there. Just sort of calmly moseying over. Can also move myself around a little bit. Could just come down to right here so that you can see more of the lovely view. Kind of nice to be able to do both at once. Heading back home, I did get a few more shots in other modes, especially the night modes. The night modes seem to be okay. It's not like it's going to really create something out of literally nothing, as I pointed it up at the sky and I hit the night mode and I really didn't get a whole lot else back from it. You still want to have a little bit of lighting in there so that it can figure out what the shadows and highlights truly are, and then it will boost the shadows more than anything else. Also, when you're in the dead of night, obviously it's a little hard to ensure that you have your photo in focus. So yes, that's why there's a little bit of blurriness in the actual night mode shots. And then the final mode that I'll talk about here is the clone mode. Like I said, I really had fun with this one because the final result I got the one time I used it actually really pleased me. So basically what you do is you set up the phone on, let's say, a tripod in this case, and you need somebody else to hit the record button. But basically, you need to be in the frame, or your subject needs to be in the frame so that it knows what to record. Once it detects the subject, you hit record and it just sort of gets a few seconds worth of you doing something in that part of the frame. Then you have to think about the frame and go to the other portion of it. That way you can literally put yourself twice in the same video. The reason why I like this mode is because it just adds another fun way of getting certain quick clips that you might put up on like IG stories or Reels or Snapchat or whatever the case may be. So it's nice to see new things like this be introduced, even on a phone that is less than $250. It does point to one issue that I have with the camera software in particular. It's just that these modes, the vlog mode, the clone mode, and even the portrait mode, they all kind of require you to either hold the camera or have somebody else to record you. It would be great if these modes were available on like the front-facing camera so that you can actually create things on your own for those social media networks like TikTok and IG Reels. But of course that will be on the wish list for future phones, and hopefully as these modes become more and more popular, POCO/Xiaomi will be putting them to work in more than just the main sensor. And so there you have it, a look at the POCO X3 NFC in this real-world camera test. I have been trying to catch up on so many different things over the last week or so, and I did not want to forget about this particular device that I know a lot of people have been singing the praises of because it is a great deal in smartphones right now. And honestly, if you're really just looking for an affordable smartphone that will provide a good everyday photography experience, well, the results on a fundamental level are pretty good from the POCO X3 NFC. So yeah, look forward to even more from the POCO X3 NFC. I will probably do my final video on this hopefully pretty soon, as Techtober is just around the corner and I'm probably going to get overwhelmed by a lot of stuff pretty much immediately. In any case, I'm going to go ahead and do this video a little bit later on, so look forward to that by subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. And I want to thank GlassesUSA.com one more time for sponsoring this video. Head to the links in the description down below to check out the pairs of glasses that I featured in this video, and also to check out their extensive catalog for yourself. From there, I'm going to go ahead and call it on this one. Thank you so much for watching, take care of yourselves and each other, and enjoy your tea, everybody.